Felix Hoffman by Jaden Degree. Who is Felix Hoffman? Felix Hoffman was a young chemist who made a safer, more stable form of acetylsalicylic acid, which is aspirin. He also accidentally made heroin while he was with the Bayer's Company. How aspirin was made. There's belief that Hoffman was trying to find a pain reliever for his father, who was suffering from rheumatic pain. So Hoffman acetyl salicylic acid, which is an ingredient in salves and teas made from willow bark and plant materials. He then used the salicylic acid to make acetylsalicylic acid. The head of the Bayer's Company, Heinrich Dresser, tried the drug on himself, animals, and then later on humans in hospitals. The name aspirin came from A in acetyl and sprin from sprea, the genus name for shrubs that were an alternative use for salicylic acid. The company wanted to patent it, but someone had made it before, just not safely.
Let me give you some advice. The process of doing your second...
Have a fever? Maybe a headache. Many people choose to take acetylsalicylic acid, or aspirin, for relief of their symptoms. In fact, aspirin has been used by humans for more than 2,500 years, ever since some person realized that chewing willow leaves seemed to treat their discomfort. This is because willow leaves contain salicin, which is turned into salicylic acid in the body. Chemists such as Charles Frederick Gerhardt and Felix Hoffman later experimented with salicylic acid to find ways of making it last longer and become less toxic in the body, which led to the creation of aspirin. Most people have experienced and appreciated firsthand the soothing effects of aspirin, but how does it actually work? In this episode of Medicurio, we will discuss the mechanism of aspirin, its side effects, and other uses of this drug aside from fever and pain relief. The body has many ways to fight an infection. It could raise the temperature and cause a fever, making the environment inhospitable for any pathogen invading the body. In addition, immune cells in the body are stimulated to release a wide variety of toxic chemicals that can kill any invaders, as well as chemicals that stimulate more immune cells as backup, a process known as inflammation. Of course, the higher temperature and released chemicals also damage your own cells, which is why you may feel pain during a fever. Despite this, fevers are not necessarily a bad thing. It is a natural and usually effective way for your body to fight infection, and aspirin and other fever-reducing drugs should only be used if the fever has lasted many days or the body temperature is very high, both of which increase the risk of permanent damage to the body. So what tells the body to turn up the heat, or the immune cells to release their chemicals? Nobody really knew for many years, even after aspirin began to be sold.
How heroin was made. Heinrich Dresser was working on the effects of codeine on breathing. He made Hoffman responsible for acetylating morphine to make more codeine, but instead of that, Hoffman produced a different drug known as heroin. Unfortunately for them, the same drug was made in 1874 by an English chemist, so they were not allowed to patent it.
Now, while opium itself has been commonly used since at least 3400 BC, heroin is a relatively new invention derived from opium. Heroin, more technically known as diacetylmorphine, was first synthesized in 1874 by chemist Charles Romilly Alder Wright, working at St Mary's Hospital Medical School in London, England. He discovered the drug after playing around with mixing morphine with various acids. Specifically, he created it after boiling acetic anhydride with anhydrous morphine alkaloid for a few hours, which resulted in what we now commonly call heroin. After running a few experiments with it on animals, though, he abandoned his work on the drug. 23 years later, though, a man named Felix Hoffmann, working at Bayer in Germany, managed to independently synthesize heroin when he was trying to produce codeine. This new derivative of opium was found to be significantly more potent than morphine, and so Heinrich Dresser, head of the pharmacological laboratory at Bayer, decided they should move forward with it rather than another drug they had recently created, and that would be aspirin. It should be noted that Dresser was apparently well aware of Wright, having synthesized heroin 23 years before. But despite this, he claimed heroin was an original Bayer product, and by early 1898, they began the animal testing phase of the product, testing it primarily on rabbits and frogs. They next moved on to testing it on people, primarily workers at Bayer, including Heinrich Dresser himself. After successful trials, heroin was presented to the Congress of German Naturalists and Physicians as more or less a miracle drug that was 10 times more effective than codeine as a cough medicine and worked even better than morphine as a painkiller. He also
How was Felix Hoffmann significant historically? He's significant because he successfully made a safe and stable form of acetyl salicylic acid, which is short for ASA. If this medicine was not created, then people wouldn't have had a good form of pain relief. Why did he stand out? He stood out because as a young chemist, he created stable form of ASA, even though many other pharmacists were skeptical of it at first, until tests were done showing how well it worked. What effect did he have on the lifestyle of the 1800s? He made an effect on the lifestyle of people by helping them manage through pains that could have restricted them if they didn't have something to take for relief. What impact did he have on our society? The impact he had was paving the way for pain medicines for all people who didn't really have ways of relieving their pain. Today we have so many different pain medicines, and we learned from how they might actually affect people, and we came up with different ways that might be just the slightest bit safer and healthier for us. What is the belief that drove Hoffmann to make a pain reliever? Who was the head of the Bayer Company? What is salicylic acid an ingredient of?